We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Glenn Carlson. Happy Thursday, the 9th of April at 6:40 here in Sydney. I'm actually coming to you live from the very windy Bondi Beach. And whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, this is like the second to last installment of what has become a bit of a series on how I'm preparing for a recession. Now, while I do believe we are really headed for some tightening in the market, this isn't about me trying to be an alarmist in any way. The best way to survive a recession is to be super efficient, effective, nimble, dynamic, able to effortlessly attract clients and partner. Effortlessly is probably a strong word. Easily and efficiently attract clients and partners, etc. So when the market tightens for everybody else, if you're running more efficiently than anybody else, you will be able to thrive because there's still plenty of buyers in a tightening market. The challenge is when there's so much competition and all those competition are trying to tackle less buyers. So in this particular installment, and by the way, this is the first one of this installment you're tuning into, let me just quickly show you the overall architecture that we've been going through, right? And if you go back, if you're in YouTube, you can go back to my channel and you will find a playlist which will have all this stuff in it. If you're on, you can just go to glenncarlson.live and that'll take you to the Facebook. And away we go. But essentially, from the start, and they're all named, this should be pretty easy to find, I've been talking about how to build a cash buffer. And that's not just a kind of thing. It's the actual architecture that we use to force profit into the business and protect it. And there's a significant amount of kind of thinking that goes into how we do that. The next episode, I went into reducing costs. The one after that, I went into reducing complexity. Then I went into building automation and assets. And in this one, we're going to talk about standing out. Of course, this is the CRASH acronym, but as you can kind of see, these things are pretty best practice. And I think you're going to like this last one that we're going to talk about tomorrow. This stuff's pretty best practice to be going through in the good times. It's just in the good times, we tend to get a little bit lazy. And so S in CRASH stands for how do you stand out? Now, let me explain what I mean by that, because we're not just talking about like a branding type thing. Standing out for the sake of standing out is ego, narcissism, vanity, all that kind of stuff. We're not approaching it from that perspective. We're approaching standing out really from an economic imperative. Like a real financial reason to do so. And so let's think about it, right? If you're an everyday business, which if you're tuning into this, you probably are, right? You're probably not writing artificial intelligence algorithms. You know, you're probably a real estate agent or an engineer or, you know, an architect or an interior designer that's just doing something, helping someone doing something, right? So in which case, you've got to think you've got some competition out there, some competitors, some people that are also doing those things and trying to get a similar market. So you got to think about what are the big things that you need to cause to happen in your business to make it successful? Well, some of the simple ones are you need to attract clients. So there's two parts of that. There's there's marketing, and then there's sales, right? Both of those things have a cost attached to them. You need to build an audience to be able to have enough people to be able to do that. Even if you're able to get the attention of people through your marketing, it's how do we effectively make sales, right? Let's say you have salespeople. Those salespeople are expensive. It becomes very difficult to make sure that the business is actually making enough money if you're using people to solve all these problems. Now, you have these problems, but your competition also have these problems. Business is expensive in all sorts of different areas. Now, what people often don't connect the idea to is that if you're standing out as the go-to person in your industry, and that's what I mean by that step, stand out. It's how do you engineer your business and your brand in a way where if people go looking, you are very easily standing out as the, or at least one of the go-to people in your industry. So let's think about that. Let's say you spend the time to build the assets and the infrastructure, and all of a sudden you start showing up as that go-to person in your industry. What's going to get easier? Well, first of all, it's going to get easier to attract clients. It's going to be easier to convert those clients into customers. It's going to be easier to retain those clients and customers and upgrade them into more valuable and more useful products or services. It's going to be cheaper and easier to attract and retain team. It's going to be cheaper and easier to bring on key strategic partnerships, because if you're showing up as that go-to person, what we would call the key person of influence in your industry, well, all of a sudden, all these things start happening easier, cheaper, and faster. And all of these things are essential in building a successful business. So if your competition want to compete, they've got to do all those things as well. But if you're able to get those things done cheaper, easier, faster, simply because of the way that you are positioned in your industry, well, then you are going to have a substantial competitive advantage. And there is an architecture, there is a methodology. Essentially, there's like an operating system, if you want to think about it like that, for how do you take a business that is currently producing value for customers. So you're solving customers, you're helping them with their problems. They're giving you great testimonials and referrals and things of that nature. So if you're in that kind of zone of business and you're feeling like you're a bit on the fringe of your industry, it's not easy to attract customers. It's a pain in the ass. You're constantly on the chase. It's not easy to build trust. You're having multiple meetings and like kind of having to really convince people. As a result of all that, they want you and your time and they want you to do it for them. And you're like, all right, now you're stuck in the business, so you don't have the right product strategy. It's certainly hard to get any attention of the media or awards or as a speaker. Key partners and major partnerships don't want to know you because you're kind of unknown in the space. You lack that credibility. It takes too long to build it. So like if you're kind of like, I've got all this value, clients love me, but all this other stuff is hard. I'm here to sell you on an idea. And that idea is this. The problem you are experiencing is got nothing to do with the value that you deliver to clients. It's got nothing to do with your lack of skills, talents, or expertise. You've got all that kind of nailed. The issue is simply you're not showing up as a go-to person in your industry. There comes a point where delivering more value, trying to get known for just doing good work has dramatic diminishing returns. And it's kind of like you got to shift gears and go, all right, enough of just focusing on how we deliver value. Now we've got to focus on how do we get known at scale for that value. So when people that you've never met, when people that have never met anyone you've ever met, so totally like 3 steps removed, are able to get to know you, like you, and trust you through your brand, through your content, through your thought leadership, and you start showing up as a key person of influence to those people, you've kind of crossed that chasm where now people all over the place can get to know you, like you, trust you at scale. That is when you start to show up as that go-to person, that key person of influence. And if you're tuning into this, it is highly, highly, highly likely you already have everything you need to produce that outcome. It just needs to be repackaged. And so you probably, if you've been watching any of these, are aware that one of the things I do is I run a webinar. If you want to register for that webinar, it's called kpiwebinar.com, where I deep dive into the methodology. But let me keep it kind of simple at this level. If you want to go, yep, the next step is to become a key person of influence in my industry, to become that go-to person, that's the outcome that's going to create the shift. And for the majority of you, that is going to be the thing that kind of creates the breakthrough. Then here's what I encourage you to think about. There are 5 essential ingredients And I want you to imagine not having any one of these essential ingredients and how that would go. So the first is a great pitch. What that means is you're able to communicate your value clearly and succinctly in a way that captures the attention of a wide audience. So people stop what they were doing and go, pay attention. Like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't even thinking about solving my problems or fixing that thing, but now you got my attention and maybe I'm thinking about it. So that's a compelling pitch. It's really important around a pitch is being up to something beyond making money. That's one of the things I talk about and I go into in kpiwebinar.com. The next thing is once we've got that pitch right, then it's about how we scale that pitch, right? So everyone tends to default to thinking about how they scale products and services, but it is super cheap and it's super easy to scale an idea. And here's what's interesting. The only thing that's ever going to get people to want to buy your stuff is if they have enough ideas, enough insights, little light bulb moments that go off in their head that make them go, I know you, like you, trust you. You give me a bunch of insights. I see the world in a different way now. I want to buy. I want to buy your stuff. Now, you can do all of that through publishing content. And that's the second step in becoming a key person of influence is you have to get some of these ideas that cause people to want to work with you that you're currently delivering one-to-one. You need to package that in a format that scales one-to-many. It's very expensive to try and promote a product or a service. It is very cheap insight. Now, you can think of those ideas or insights or things that make people go, wow, I never thought of it like that. That's really interesting. In the times like these with Facebook and LinkedIn and all these things, it is very cheap to distribute ideas like that, but very few people in their industry are good at it. So if you were to prioritize really quickly the next few months, that would make someone want to buy your product or service. And that's what I talk about when I talk about publishing on the publish step of the KPI webinar. The next is product. So let's say you've worked on your pitch, you've got an incredible pitch that gets this great cut through, you've published this content at scale, you're building this audience, now people are showing up. Now what we need to make sure you're not doing is selling your time, or you have a business model that is scalable. And this is what we talk about productizing. So if you're in a service business, or if you're selling your time, or if you have a product, but it's a really low margin, high volume, and you're struggling to get the return on selling that, then I encourage you, jump on this KPI webinar thing that I keep talking about and check out what I have to say around productizing. The core idea is that products or services on their own don't make money. Product ecosystems make money. Hey, Rachel, thanks for tuning in. Rachel, who is a published author, thanks for tuning in, says it's the book that makes you credible, not the number of Instagram followers. I agree. She also says, and get a column in a magazine of your industry publication. I do that. It's gold. Awesome. Right? So this stuff works, right? You just got to follow the process. So productizing, so we can get more value. How do we deliver value to customers where you're not selling your time? That is key. It's about how do we deliver value to customers without selling your time. And I talk about how to think about structuring that on the webinar. What else do I talk about on the webinar? I talk about profile, right? We talk about how to build a profile without being a shameless self-promoter, even if you're an introvert, even if you don't want to be like a guru, even if you're not an expert. There's plenty of influencers that aren't experts. And so working out how to build your profile that's appropriate for your expertise, your stage of business, your personality. It's about finding the angle that is going to work. So essentially when people Google you, great stuff shows up. And then finally, joint ventures, partnerships, and alliances, being able to collaborate with some of the key influencers in your industry, making it easy to attract clients, easy to build trust. All these different things can be leveraged for partnerships. But the key thing about partnerships is that it's only key people of influence that get to truly create the powerful, long-lasting partnerships, because none of the good partners that can actually transform your business in a major way want to work with you if you're unknown and on the fringe of your industry. Even if you do good work, it's too hard, right? Partners like team, like prospects or customers want to partner, like team want to work for, like clients want to do business with, people they know, like, and trust. And so when it comes to standing out as a powerful tool for preparing for a recession, right? Because in a recession, the tide's going to drop, right? And everyone's going to find it harder. But if you are able to share ideas more effectively than your competition, well, what's going to start to happen is it's going to get easier for you. Even though there's less people buying, there are still people buying. So if you're able to be that person, not just through content, but by the caliber of that content, don't make the mistake in thinking what I'm talking about here is just producing content. I'm not. I'm talking about content plus the caliber of who you and your organization are. So it's being the award winners, it's being up to something beyond making money. It's, all those different things coming together, which is kind of built into these 5 steps in the KPI webinar. You get good at that. And then while times get tough for everybody else, you're kind of like, we still got plenty of people wanting to work with us. And so while there might be less people overall in the industry that have the wherewithal to buy products or services, you're still able to capture a disproportionately larger proportion of that, meaning even if you're not going through growth quarter by quarter by quarter, the trick is this strategy will stop you going backwards. And when everyone else is going bust, as the market starts to come back, you're reinforced, you're able to start taking what would normally be their market. Right? Money is made when everything goes south by the people that are prepared. So highly encourage you to consider the idea that if you are currently not showing up as the key person of influence in your industry, and hey, Greg, thanks from YouTube, buddy. I'm not very popular on YouTube, haven't been doing it much. Just started recently, so we're just sort of testing to see what happens. What's cool is I'm using this little platform called StreamYard, which plugs into another little platform called Restream, and that lets me stream to multiple platforms at the same time, which is kind of cool. And I can put your little comments up there like that. So here's what I recommend you do. Not just if you want to, let's say what I'm talking about, the economy booms and all this stuff that the media and commentators and everyone's saying doesn't happen. All right, let's just say it doesn't happen. Well, here's what I'm suggesting you should be doing anyway. If you're able to prepare for a crash and be ready for a crash, it's still going to put you in a much better position, even if there's a boom. So here's what I recommend you do. I recommend you get cashed up. I recommend you reduce your costs and reduce your inefficiencies. I recommend that you build assets into your business. And if you haven't heard me talk about that before, go back and watch the Facebook Live or the YouTube video I did talking in this series on assets, and that'll make a lot of sense. Focus on standing out in your industry as that go-to person, because that just creates efficiencies at every layer of your business model. And if you would like to go deep into how to do that, check out KPIwebinar.com. That's where I deep dive into this. This is 9 years we've been working and producing key people of influence from around the world. My best thinking on how we do that goes in there. And then what I'm going to talk about tomorrow is the last step, which is H of crash, which stands for help. And what we're going to explore is, and whether you're watching this live, stay tuned for it tomorrow, or if you're watching the replay, you'll just be able to find it and click on it straight away if you want to keep going, is asking the question, who can you help? If the market goes to shit, who can you help not suffer as much, right? And then the next question is, who can help you? And that's going to be a conversation about partnerships. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have found that useful. That's all from me this evening. A few things. If you're watching this in replay, I'm going to be compiling all of these episodes into a white paper, so you can have access to our crash methodology as a special report, which goes and condenses everything I've said over these 5 or so sessions so far into one neat little PDF. If you would like that, let me know in the comments, because we're going to go and trawl the comments of all of this on YouTube and any platform you're on, Pinterest, etc. I don't even know if Pinterest can add comments, but let me know you want that, and I'll make sure we get it to you when it happens. The next thing I'd like you to do is like hit like and love and like comments and just say like what you got out of this, because that just like tweaks the Facebook algorithm and they really like it, and it helps me share my ideas and my insights around this with more people. And I just want as many people to be paired as possible. My whole philosophy, the whole reason I'm doing this stuff is because I believe business can and must be a force for good, right? That ultimately we should be building our businesses in a way that doesn't just serve ourselves, but serves the world and serves the UN global goals. I'm going to be doing another live in a couple of days on that. The most effective way I know in helping people help the world is to help them become key people of influence. You are never going to make an impact if you are not a key person of influence. People without influence don't create impact. So if you feel like you're on this planet to do something meaningful, then I encourage you to prioritize becoming a key person of influence, standing out and preparing for the crash. My name's Glenn Carlson. Be brave. Have fun. It's going to make a dent.